thrilled to welcome everyone to Home Care Assistance. We're humbled for this opportunity to pay it forward to so many that means so much. There are over 400 people registered for this webinar, so positivity is trending in our world, and we're grateful you're in it. I now have the delightful job of introducing you to Pamela Jett, an internationally recognized communications expert, speaker, and author. Pamela inspires audiences with a dash of neuroscience, a touch of humor, and just the right amount of attitude tweaks. A recipe we can all use to make a positive difference in our day to day lives. Pamela, you're going to help us all end 2020 on a relentlessly positive note, right? Well, let's get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, Pamela Jett.
Thank you so very much. And it is an indeed delight to be here with you today because we're going to talk about how to stay relentlessly positive in a relentlessly negative world. And we're simply aware that things have changed and that many of us are experiencing more challenges, more stressors, or if we're not experiencing more challenges and stressors, we're experiencing some unprecedented or some new challenges and stressors. And I am thrilled that you are participating in today's program so that you can develop some more tools to help you navigate this unprecedented time. And like I said, I'm thrilled you're here today. And we have over 400 attendees, which means it's going to be crazy in our chat. So thank you very much for participating. That chat is going to go really quick. And one of the things we want to do is make sure that all of you have your chat set up correctly. So we will not be using the Q&A feature. We will be using the chat feature. So if you are in the Q&A section, you'll want to zip over to the chat section. You'll also want to make sure that you have it set so that your answers can go to all panelists and attendees. All panelists and attendees. So if you are ready to, let's do what I like to call, it's called a chat waterfall, so we can all test our chat function. If you think that times are a bit more challenging for you personally and or professionally than they were this exact time last year. So if you think things are a little more difficult or challenging than they were last year at this exact time, just give us a quick yes in the chat pod. Yes, yes, yes. And if it's a no, it's a no. But wow, look at all that. Yes, 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 yes. This is what we call a quick chat waterfall. So we can just take the temperature. Almost everyone is saying yes. Some of you are saying yes with exclamation marks. And some of you are saying yes in all capitals with tons of exclamation marks. Some of you've got a no. I love that. I'm glad that some of you are not experiencing more challenges than you were a year ago. But many of you, for various reasons, are experiencing more and more challenges. So I'm delighted you're here today. Thanks for testing our chat pod with that, because we're going to talk today about how we can navigate. And for some of you, you're saying, hey, I don't look at it as more stress. I look at it as more opportunities. That is a great way to do what we call reframing. And we're going to talk about that today. Because for some of us, we have had to figure out, how do we navigate this challenging time or this unprecedented time more effectively? Some of you might be feeling frustrated. Some of you might be feeling somewhat overwhelmed. And it's not unusual to feel that way. And by the way, if you're feeling that way, it's okay. It doesn't make you less of a positive person. We can be stressed and we can have challenges as positive people. And that's one of the things we're going to discover today. So there's no shame in saying, hey, yeah, it's a little harder for me now, because relentlessly positive people are able to do that. And let me explain what I mean by relentlessly positive. The working definition of relentlessly positive that I like to use is the constant application of effective and productive optimism. The constant application of effective and productive optimism. Now, notice, relentlessly positive is not about being happy, clappy, rah, rah, cheerleader, being in a positive, good mood all the time. Although, often when you are in the practice of using effective and productive optimism, you will feel more joy. You will have some more of that energy and enthusiasm. You will be one of those, hey, it's going to be a great day kinds of people. Maybe you do have more of a rah, rah attitude. But Relentlessly positive is not about being falsely happy or in that rah cheerleader mode. Relentlessly positive is about the constant application of effective and productive optimism. And I use the waves of the ocean as an example for this because it's the constancy of the waves that always amazes me. That no matter what, the waves keep coming over and over and over again. And no matter what is in a wave's way, it still keeps coming. It breaks against the rocks, it breaks against the pier, but the waves keep coming. That's kind of like our positive attitude can be. No matter what gets in our way, we meet it head on with a positive attitude. And that no matter what situation we encounter, we are going to constantly apply. And apply is so important because it's an action word. Relentless positivity is not passive, it is active. It is something that you do, it is something that you practice regularly, it is something that you act upon regularly. So it's the constant application of effective and productive optimism, meaning that it works and it gets things done, and it is that optimistic attitude. And by the way, optimism has to do with the way we see things. It has the root word opti in it, which means to see. And I firmly believe that relentlessly positive people see the world slightly differently than those who are relentlessly negative. And I want to ask you a quick question another time in our chat pod. How many of you, and if you do, it's to just say yes again, do you know someone who is relentlessly negative? I mean, they are the antithesis. Yes, 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 yes. Oh, I got an OMG. Yes, 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 yes. Some of you are thinking I gave birth to one, I'm married to one, I work with them. They're everywhere. We have people who are relentlessly negative. And some of you know people who are relentlessly negative to others, but they aren't to you because you've trained them how to treat you. You've trained them that their negativity is not welcome near you. Well, we want to be the exact opposite of that. We want to be the kind of person who sees things from a positive point of view. And like I said, do not confuse that with this notion of being always happy, clappy, or in a good mood. You can be frustrated, you can be sad, you can be overwhelmed, you can be confused, you can be concerned, you can feel depleted, you can feel exhausted, you can feel a lot of these, I call them the negative emotions that many of us have. You can experience those and still be relentlessly positive. In fact, there's a whole body of research out now, and this is really interesting to me, along this line of what they call toxic positivity. That by trying to be super positive when things are legitimately challenging, that actually can have a toxic impact. We're going to discover today how not to ignore the negative and still stay relentlessly positive. And part of our process today is for us to be taking good notes. So, my encouragement to you is if you have a blank sheet of paper or anything that you can use as a note taking device, you're going to want to divide that blank sheet of paper into 3 columns. And I'd like you to label the first column START, START. And throughout this session, I'm going to be sharing with you tools, tips, techniques, things that you will want to start doing. And I will represent those starts by a check mark, a nice green check mark. So when you hear something and you think, oh, that'll help me stay relentlessly positive in a relentlessly negative world, you want to make sure that you are writing them down, using that check mark as an indicator of, hey, I ought to write this down, so that at the end of today's session, you have a running list of all those things you want to start doing. There'll also be some things that I will recommend that you start doing that you might already be doing. And I would call these the continues. The things that you are doing that I would encourage you to continue doing, you want to write those down as well, because that's a reminder that, hey, I'm doing some things right, or I've got the right tools under my belt. And then, of course, there will be those things we want to stop doing. Some things that we might be saying, some behaviors we might be engaging in that actually sabotage our ability to be relentlessly positive. So be on the lookout for those things you want to start, those things you want to stop, and those things you want to continue today. And I would encourage you to add a relentlessly positive question to the very top of your start column. This is the first thing you could add to your start column. And that is, how will this work for me? Now, notice I have emphasized the word how. There's a reason for that. Because when we put the word how in front of will this work for me, we are working with our brain's architecture to help us learn. Now, I'm going to share something with you that is a dash of neuroscience, and we won't dive too deeply into it. But one of the things that neuroscientists know is that our brain has a negative bias. We just do. And it's part of our survival mechanism. And in one way, the brain's negative bias, and that's all of us, by the way, even the most positive people in the world, their brain still has a negative bias. One of the things that, or the ways it shows up, is that our brain will classify or code or interpret. You can use whatever word works for you. Our brain will classify, code, or interpret anything that is new as a threat. I'll share that with you again. Our brain classifies anything that is new, anything that it learns that it has never seen before, or anything it encounters that it hasn't ever encountered before. It automatically, by default, classifies that as danger, 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 or a threat. And imagine this. Imagine ancient man runs across a berry that they have never seen before. The brain says, don't eat that berry until you know it's safe. So it's better to assume that that berry is toxic than to just eat it willy nilly. Well, we've never really outgrown that tendency. So it shows up when we learn new skills. If we ask ourselves, will this work for me? Our brain's default negativity comes in place. Our brain's default activity says, that won't work. That's not a good idea, because it's trying to keep us safe from the terrors of change. So if I share a tool, tip, or technique with you today and you ask yourself, will this work? Your brain will almost automatically say, no, she doesn't know what it's like to be in the home care world. She doesn't know what it's like to work with families. She doesn't know what it's like to be a caregiver or a scheduler or to run an organization full of caregivers and schedulers. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Your brain will automatically go into default of negativity. That's natural and that's normal. So let's outsmart that. Let's work with our brain's architecture. And instead of asking, will this work? Let's ask, how will this work? How can I apply this tool, tip, or technique? How can I use this in my life personally and professionally? Because when we add the word how, it turns it from a closed-ended yes or no question to an open-ended question. It also assumes it's going to work. That's why it's relentlessly positive. It assumes it's going to work. The question isn't, is it going to work? The question is just how or where or when, and will I have the opportunity to apply it? So my encouragement to you is write that question down, but also let it be your guiding question today as we go through some new tools and techniques. Probably one of the most important things that we can talk about in terms of relentless positivity is our mindset. There's so much research that says that our mindset really impacts every outcome that we have in life. So if you expect bad things to happen, you typically have bad things happen. If you expect good things or positive things, you increase the likelihood that you have those good things or those positive things. We want to develop a relentlessly positive mindset. And perhaps one of the most helpful tools we can have to develop that relentlessly positive mindset is something that I learned from my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Stephen Covey. Now, Dr. Covey passed away many years ago, but not before I had a chance to work with him, to spend time with him, and to learn from him. It is because of his work, which I discovered at the shocking age of 12 years old, which some people just can't believe it. Like, what? 12 years old? It's because of the work that he was doing when I was a preteen that I do what I do today. And I consider him a mentor. And this is one of those things that I learned at a very, very young age that has helped me immeasurably throughout my life. Because although people know me as a very positive, very upbeat person, my life path has not been easy. None of our life paths are easy. So I've had my fair share of challenges. I've had my fair share of struggles. I've had my share of disappointments. But one of the things that has helped me is what I'm going to share with you now. And it's a way to help us focus. Now, I cannot take credit for this. Like I said, I learned this from Dr. Stephen Covey. So you'll see that to the right-hand side of the screen, you have a version of a target or a bullseye. That's our blue-green thing. Let me encourage you to label, if you make your own version of this. You might decide, hey, I want to write my own version of this on my note page, maybe on your start or your continue column. Create that target or a bullseye. It has 3 concentric circles, so a big one and then a smaller one and then a much smaller one. Label the biggest circle, the outside circle, label that one concern. Inside of our, and we'll call it our sphere or our circle of concern, lie all of the things in this world that concern you. Everything that concerns you falls in your circle or sphere of concern. Now, one of the things that I like to ask is I like to ask if anyone is concerned about the weather. And you don't need to answer it. It's just kind of one of those, oh, anybody concerned about the weather? And if your instinct is to say, I'm not concerned about the weather, I would encourage you to think about that differently. I think we're all concerned about the weather. It's raining where I am right now. So that tells me that I need to take an umbrella when I go out later today. And for some of you, it's really deep winter and you know you've got to have your snow tires on, or it's time to make sure you have the proper equipment in the back of your car. For some of us, I live in Arizona, so the rain's a treat. But for some of you, it's like, oh, it's raining again. We're almost always concerned about the weather. It tells us what to wear, if we're going to drive with the convertible top up or down. We're all concerned about the weather. But the reason why most people, when I ask, is anybody concerned about the weather? Most people don't say, oh, I am, is because we know instinctively. We just kind of know that no matter how concerned we are about the weather, there's absolutely nothing, diddly squat, we can do about it. So we're smart enough not to waste too much emotional energy stewing on or getting worked up over the weather. Now, for every statement I make like that, there's almost always somebody who does get worked up and they do stew about it and they do fret about the weather. We all know that that's not going to change anything. Now, the reason I give this as an example is because it's something we can all relate to. But right now, there are so many things that fall only in our circle of concern. And if we are stewing about it and fretting about it and worrying about it, it makes absolutely zero impact on it. Just like fretting about the weather has zero impact on the weather. And it doesn't make it easy. And that's why it falls in our circle of concern. I mean, it might impact me. But there's nothing I can do about it. So it only falls in my circle of concern. The next level is what we call the sphere or circle of influence. And inside this sphere or circle of influence are all of those things that not only concern you, but you can actually influence. You can actually do something about. So the weather does not fall in my circle of or sphere of influence. There are a lot of things that concern us that we can do nothing about. They don't fall in our circle of influence. And oh, by the way, the smallest circle, that is the circle of control. And it is the smallest circle for a reason, because about the only thing we can control is ourselves, our choices. And sometimes I like us to ponder this, where do other people fall? And the answer for most of us is we'd like to think that other people fall in our circle of influence. And I'm here to share with you, ladies and gentlemen, that most people, most of the time, fall mostly in our circle or sphere of concern only. And if you've ever tried to change anybody else, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It made for a great first marriage, didn't it? We might have some influence over people. We might have influence over our family members, our spouse. We might have influence over our team members. We might have influence over our employees. You might have influence over your patients about whether they are compliant or not with what you're asking them to do. Yes, I like this. You cannot change circumstances or other people. And that is so true. But the only thing that falls in our circle of concern are our choices. Now, here's why this is a relentlessly positive mindset tool. I like to make sure that I have posted somewhere in my workspace, especially if I'm struggling. I like to make sure that I have posted someplace in my workspace my version of this concern, influence, and control. And when I find myself getting all worked up about something, or if I find myself using a lot of emotional energy or something that's taken a lot of my bandwidth, I want to stop and ask myself, where does this fall? Like, am I getting worked up about something that is only in my circle of concern? And if the answer to that is yes, and I've got to say, hey, I got to let that go and move forward. If it's in my sphere of influence, am I doing what I can and then moving forward? And if it's in my sphere of control, am I doing what I can? But a lot of times I just have to check myself because I'll realize that, hey, I'm spending all this energy and it's only in my circle of concern. And it doesn't mean it doesn't impact me. It just means it's not a great use of my emotional energy to focus there. Where are you focusing? Relentlessly positive people remind themselves regularly to focus on their sphere of control most of the time, and to not waste a lot of time, effort, and energy getting all worked up about what other people are doing or about circumstances they cannot control. Where is your focus? You might actually decide to write that question down near your circles of influence and control and concern, because you now have the opportunity to have your own version of that and you can check yourself. This is a powerful, relentlessly positive tool. I would also encourage you to remember that relentlessly positive people not only have a relentlessly positive mindset, they are actively practicing and reinforcing that mindset. And I know that sounds really odd, but we are reinforcing our choices to be relentlessly positive. And for me, one of the most powerful actions that I can engage in, and remember, relentless positivity, it's action oriented. It's not just sit and ponder, it's doing something. One of the most relentlessly positive things that I can do is to practice active gratitude. We often hear about this thing that I call, an attitude of gratitude, that we want to have gratitude in our hearts and be thankful for everything. I think that's fabulous. And most assuredly, have an attitude of gratitude and be thankful in your heart. But when times are relentlessly negative, we've got to move just out of having this attitude of gratitude, and we want to practice active gratitude. Now, let me give you some examples of what I mean. And by the way, I like to call it, in times of stress or challenge, extreme active gratitude. Like, the more negative things are, the more I need to practice extreme active gratitude. I'll give you some examples. Some people are journalers. If you're a journaler and you have a gratitude journal, now is the time to amp up that process. Some of you are wondering, what's a gratitude journal? It's where you start out every day or end every day, or you spend some time once a week making a list of all the things that you are grateful for. Why is this active? Because you're writing it down and you're reinforcing it in your brain of all the things that you are grateful for. And by the way, when you change the way you look at things, what you look at changes. Let me share that with you again. When you change the way you look at things, what you look at changes. So the more I get in the habit of noticing the good things, the more good things I will notice. It's because my reticular activating system is getting programmed. And some of you are wondering, what in the world are you talking about, the reticular activating system? Well, let me give you an example. Have you ever noticed that when you buy a new car, the moment you drive that new car off the lot, you start seeing that exact same car everywhere? The same make, same model, same color. And in this day, you don't even really have to buy the car. You just have to start looking at it on the internet, and all of a sudden you start seeing the cars everywhere. Anybody ever had that experience? If you have, just give us a yes in the chat pod. If you've ever noticed that the moment you buy a car, you start seeing that car more. I've got a yes, 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 yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, yes, yes. Yep, yep, yep. That's our reticular activating system at work. We're inundated. We see tons of cars all the time. Those cars have always been there. They've always been there. But because we bought the car, now we see the car. So active gratitude is exactly what it works, how it works. Is that if I do something active and I write down everything that I'm grateful for, you're going to start seeing more things to write down. It's just as simple as that. So gratitude journaling works. Now, that's only one form of extreme active gratitude. I've become kind of a grateful thank you person. I've always been polite. I'm always the kind of person that when I'm at the grocery store, I say thank you to the clerk, and I say thank you to the person who bags my groceries, if that's appropriate. I say thank you to people. That's just good manners. So I practice gratitude in my daily life by using good manners. Extreme active gratitude takes it to the next level. I'm the kind of gal who now walks by in the grocery stores, and if I see a young person or a clerk or someone cleaning shelves or restocking shelves, I say, hey, thank you for working, especially during this time. Or, hey, thank you for working in this environment. Really appreciate the hard work you're doing to keep us safe. So I believe that if we practice active gratitude, extreme active gratitude, what we're doing is we're moving above and beyond our normal comfort zone. Some people are writing thank you notes to people who have influenced their careers, and they write one note a week to someone who has made an impact in their career or made a difference. And it doesn't have to be a handwritten note. It could be send them a Facebook, a chat message just to say, hey, you've made a difference in my life. Anything that allows you to express your gratitude. I have a family friend who she and her family every night at the dinner table, every night, doesn't matter, rain or shine, no matter the circumstances, instead of it only happening once a year like Thanksgiving where we all say I'm grateful for this, her family has started doing it every night. They sit down for family dinner and they each express something they're grateful for. These are examples of active gratitude. You can find your own. And if you want to have a more positive mindset, especially during this challenging time, go for it. Active gratitude is a key. Another key to having a relentlessly positive mindset is learning how to reframe. Now, framing theory is a basic psychological theory, and I'm not going to dive too deep into it because it's outside of the scope of today's program, but let me explain another bit of neuroscience. Our brains like stories. And I don't mean like Goldilocks and Three Bears type of stories. I mean, when something happens to us, our brain has to make sense of it and it kind of creates a story around it. And we call that how we frame things up or how we make sense of things. Let me give you a classic example. Say your significant other sends you flowers. There's one story available to you when you receive those flowers that you might tell yourself, one way you interpret that. And that might be, oh, they care about me. They love me. They want me to have a great day. What a nice, kind thing. It's a very positive story. Now, some of you are hearing this story and you're thinking, that is not my story. That is not my story. My significant other sends me flowers. I wonder what they have done wrong. Why are they buttering me up? What is going on? Same event, receiving flowers, two very different stories. Well, where does this come from? It comes from previous experiences, it comes from expectations, but that's an example of how we frame up events. Well, here's the important piece of the puzzle from my perspective. As an expert in human behavior and communication, I know that the way we categorize information in our head really impacts us. So if I have a story in my head that says, oh, here they go again, I'm going to respond according to the oh, here they go again type of story. What the good news is for us is that if we know we're telling ourselves a story, we can check our story. One of my favorite questions when you find yourself in a kind of you have a negative spin on something, ask yourself, how true is that really? I'd write that down maybe on my continue or my start column. How true is that really? I have to take a sip. I know it's terrible, a soda. How true is that really? So if you say, oh, what did they do now? Oh, wait a minute. How true is that really? Could there be an alternate story? Even allowing for the possibility for there to be a different story allows us to change our mindset. A lot of people have been trying to actively reframe this pandemic. In fact, one of you did so in our chat. They're like, no, it hasn't been more difficult. It's just been full of more opportunities, more learning experiences. That's reframing in action. That's saying, I'm not going to think of this as difficult anymore. I'm going to think of this as opportunity producing. There are plenty of people who are saying, I'm not going to think about this as all this time in my house with my family. I can't stand it. It's what a glorious opportunity to get to know my family better, to invest in some family time. People have been taking up all sorts of powerful tools to help themselves cope. And it is so powerful to let other people know there are other ways to see things. I love that. When things get hard, really hard, I say, awesome. Like, oh, awesome. Because it helps to at least say, okay, here we go. A chance to stretch, a chance to grow, a chance to learn. I will tell you that in my industry, which is the speaking and training industry, the self-development field, my entire business went like this, exploded. Now, I've been doing programs like this for a long time, so it was an easy adjustment for me. However, my industry changed completely. In-person meetings, not happening. And if I had said, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, instead of saying this is an opportunity for me to really lean into the virtual, the world would be very different for me. So how are you choosing to see things? How are you choosing to frame things up? One of my favorites is to look at the language you're using. I have decided for me that I'm not going to call this a hard year or a hard time. I'm simply going to call it unprecedented. unprecedented. So from my perspective, unprecedented is an honest thing. We've never had a time like this in any of our lifetimes that we can, maybe some, yeah, none. No time like this is unprecedented. None of us have ever had a year like 2020 has been. Unprecedented. That's accurate. So I'm not trying to lie to myself and say, oh, this has been the most amazing year ever, and I love this year. I'm not trying to lie to myself, because I would hear that if I tried to say that to myself, and I'd be like, that's not true. But I can accept unprecedented. Yeah, unprecedented. It has been unprecedented. That changes how I see things if I call it unprecedented versus this is a terrible year. How can you change what you say and how you function? So for me, change it's been a terrible year to it's been an unprecedented year or something similar can be one of those changes that you can make in your own way of thinking and seeing to help you reframe. Because when you change the way you look at things, what you look at changes. If you do nothing else, take that challenge and choose a word like unprecedented to replace some of the negative words, and check in with yourself and ask yourself, how does that make me feel? And it'll make you feel more positive. That's a relentlessly positive tool. Now, here's what's really happened for many of us. We have really had to dig deep this year because it's been challenging for those of you who schedule caregivers. It's been challenging because the need has been greater than ever, and perhaps the resources, as in the caregivers, are scarcer than ever. Caregivers, you are dealing with some challenging circumstances because you might be caring for people who are now living in family homes with people that aren't necessarily helping, but they're still working from home, and that presents its challenges. Business owners are stretched with figuring out how do we function and stay compliant within the rules of our new, I should say, the CDC guidelines and so forth. Some of you are also having the undercurrent of stress that you are dealing with an at-risk population, and that makes it scarier. I mean, I love that. Oh, Victoria, that is so powerful. I believe that those of you in the home care business have really discovered your resilience. This was your time to dig deep and find it. Wow, that is a great way to look at that. So this has been a really great opportunity to discover just how resilient you can be. And resilient people who are relentlessly positive still have negative thoughts and emotions. And I really want to make sure I give you permission to acknowledge some of the challenging things that are going on. So even though we change it and we try to look at it as a learning opportunity or unprecedented, we're still going to have times when we are down, when we are frustrated, when we are depressed. And I will tell you, and this has been from personal experience, and I'm not afraid to confess it. There have been plenty of days where I have not wanted to really function. I'm the most relentlessly positive person out there because it's what I do for a living. And there have been times when all I've wanted to do is watch the Netflix series of the day and just that's it, veg out, stay in my pajamas all day. We all have rough patches, and it is not helpful to ignore them. This is one of the secrets that relentlessly positive people know, that those who engage in what we call toxic positivity, which is just like slapping some happy over something, this is what relentlessly positive people know, that people who just try to slap some happy over something is going to happen. I love this. Negativity in the mind is as normal as positivity. It's how we handle it that makes a difference. So let me share with you a 3-step process to managing negative thoughts and emotions, because you're going to have them. They're going to happen. So what do you do with them? So the first thing we want to do is we want to identify and acknowledge. We want to accurately identify what our negative thought is or our negative emotion. Are we feeling tired? Are we feeling overwhelmed? Are we feeling confused? Are we feeling down? Do we have the blues? Are we depressed? Are we feeling that we are being taken for granted? Are we feeling frustrated with coworkers? What exactly are we feeling? Now, notice I say exactly, because a lot of us tend to rely on some very high level labels like, oh, I'm depressed, or I'm angry. Sometimes we say I'm angry, but we're not really angry. We're irritated, or we're frustrated, or confused, or we're annoyed. And that's more accurate. We want to check in and make sure we're labeling those emotions accurately and not just grabbing the easiest label. We want to and acknowledge those emotions. So identify them and acknowledge them. like, yep, I'm frustrated right now. Or, yeah, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. That is identifying and acknowledge. And here's what is so important. We want to build our emotional vocabularies, because when we can accurately label what we are experiencing, we stand a better chance of managing it. Because I love this notion. If you name it, you can tame it. If you name it, you can tame it. So if I'm able to accurately identify what I'm feeling, then I get to be the boss of those emotions, or I get to manage those or tame those emotions. Because once I know what it is I'm feeling, then I can better identify and deal with it. But what becomes problematic is that if I say I'm angry, then I'm reinforcing an angry attitude, but I'm not really dealing with the core issue. If I'm not really angry, I'm frustrated. Frustration and anger are very different things. So we want to accurately name those so that we can tame them. If you name it, you can tame it. And it's also really important. And somebody said, whose quote is that? If you can name it, you can tame it. Probably mine. I don't know. I've been saying it for years. It's one of those common phrases that a lot of what you're hearing is things that I have been talking about for a long time. So I don't know if it's anybody's direct quote. Most of the time, if I give you a direct quote and I know they know the source, I'll tell it. But a lot of it is just common vernacular. Same with this notion. What we resist persists. Now, let me ask you a question, and you can just think about this. Have you ever had a craving for something particular? Like you are craving brownies, but you decide, no, I really shouldn't eat the brownies because brownies are bad for me. So you have a bad brownie thought, like I want brownies, and we label them as, oh, I shouldn't want brownies. I want an apple. So, okay, so we eat an apple, but we still are like, oh, I'm still craving brownies, still craving brownies. And so we tend to eat our way through the entire kitchen and the pantry, and we consume more calories, more sugar, more fat, more bad stuff for us in the course of trying to eat anything but the bad brownie than we would have if we had just made ourselves a batch of brownies and had a beautiful brownie and enjoyed it. Well, the same thing happens with our negative thoughts. What we resist persists. The more we try to tell ourselves, I shouldn't be frustrated, I shouldn't be sad, I shouldn't be annoyed, I shouldn't get upset about this, the more that upset tends to push to be acknowledged. Now, I know that sounds really strange, but I'd like you to think about you having like this toddler in your head, that if we try to tell the toddler, shh, I don't want to hear your negative thoughts, I don't want you to be sad. And it's very, very important to say to yourself, oh, I'm frustrated. Because if you try to shush that toddler, the toddler doesn't, it just keeps at it. What we resist persists. And yes, for those of you who are saying, hey, I've read the book The Secret, and this is all part of that. Yes, a lot of this can be found in almost any of our very popular books on personal development, self-development, mindset. It's all over the place. And it's all designed to help us be more resilient. So what we resist persists. So when I am feeling blue, I want to say, oh, I'm sad. And I want to allow that sad to exist, or I want to allow my blues to exist, because if I ignore it or I try to tamp it down or tell myself I shouldn't feel like this, it doesn't make it go away. It only makes it stronger. So identify and acknowledge, allow that to happen. Say, okay, I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm feeling whatever it is. And then you can do the reframing process. I'm feeling frustrated. And another way of looking at it is, and I could tell myself a different story about this, but you can't begin the reframe process until you identify and acknowledge. And then here's a real powerful step. And this is step number 3. And it's my next best. So it could be my next best step, my next best action, my next best feeling. So you go through the reframe and then you ask yourself, what's next? Remember, relentless positivity is action oriented. So if I say, okay, I'm currently frustrated, I always learn when I'm frustrated. My next best step is to ask better questions. So I'm frustrated, and I always learn when I'm frustrated. So my next best step is to ask better questions. I'm frustrated. I'm identifying and acknowledge, and I always learn. So I'm reframing it as a learning opportunity, my next best step, and then I'm moving it forward. So what this 3-step process does is it takes all of the work in social psychology, all of the work in neuroscience, all the work in human development, all of the work in positive mindset, all the work in the manifesting and the law of attraction, and all of these is, I love this. You can, the 7 rules of Periclesis, same thing. It takes all of this kind of thought that we have and it boils it down to 3 steps. Identify and acknowledge, hey, I'm frustrated, but hey, frustration can be a teacher. I'll ask better questions so I can learn better. My next best. This is a powerful tool. So I'm curious. And by the way, I will send the results out as a follow-up to this meeting, and then hopefully we can send it out to our attendee list. Let's take a quick poll. The easiest thing to do is to grab your cell phone. Most of you probably have your cell phones open, and you're used to doing this, by the way, with menus now. So you open up your camera app and you center what's called the QR code and you scan it, and then you open the browser window and take a quick poll. If you don't want to use that, just take that link, which is www.surveymonkey.com/R/L99V8JG. And it's a super quick poll. And it will take you just a flash to take that. And then I will send the results as an after message so we can see what your answers are. So take a moment, center that QR code in your phone, and you can take a quick poll, and we'll send the results on to everyone. I'll give you another moment to do that. And again, if you would rather not to do that, gateway timed out, that's interesting. If you're getting an interesting message, I apologize. Hopefully, got that too. Okay. Well, yep, same. Okay. I will. I'm not sure what that's about or why it's doing that, but I see it's not working. So those of you who are saying it's not working, we got the message. I apologize for that. What I will do is I will send the link afterwards. I'll double check that, but don't, some of you are saying, oh, it did work. So some of it's working, some of it's not working, but I'll make sure that I send that on to you. Thank you for trying. Thank you for telling me you had a problem. And I'll go back in and take it. She said it worked the second time. It worked after 2 times. Okay. My apologies. And by the way, if this isn't working, that's okay. I'll give you an opportunity to do it later. I'll go back and see if there's anything on my end. But thank you for trying, and thanks for letting us know you're having some problems. Some technology. We're going to reframe it. Learning experience. So my next best step is, I love it. Yeah, maybe you have to pick a better answer. I love it. My next best step would be to just move on and talk about something else we can do to stay relentlessly positive. And some of you hit refresh and it works, so great. One of the ways that we can also help ourselves be more relentlessly positive is to create new rituals. Create new rituals. Ritual, ladies and gentlemen, has a very soothing and comforting impact on the brain. It's part of why people love to engage in worship services, because there is ritual in it. It's not the only reason why people want to engage in worship services, but there is power in that ritual of attending a church service on a regular basis and participating in a group ritual. It is part of why people love certain types of ceremonies. We do certain things at the birthday party. Most of the time, families will have rituals around birthday parties, but what's a ritual almost everyone has? They have birthday cake and they blow out the candle. There is comfort that we find in rituals. We can, during unprecedented times, tap into the power of new rituals. Let me share with you some of the rituals that people I know are engaging in during this time. I have a friend who lives actually in South Africa, and they have what they call Fancy Fridays. And on Fancy Fridays, everybody gets dressed up and they cook a fancy meal and they use the best china. And they sit down at the dinner table every Friday and they have Fancy Friday. What a great way to connect and to celebrate. So they have Fancy Fridays. That's one option. I have another friend who has created a ritual around grocery store shopping. Anytime someone in their family goes to the grocery store, they come back and they make a deposit into what they call their food bank jar. So because they feel like they are grateful that they are not struggling with food scarcity, they are committed to providing food for people in their community. And then once a week, they choose a food bank and they donate food bank. And they, by the way, they've been choosing food banks all over the country just for fun. They've been researching that part of the world or that part of the country, and they're choosing a food bank and they make a donation. And it is a part of their new ritual. Helps them be more grateful and also helps them to learn about others, to tap into their empathy. One of my new rituals is I have what I call my daily five. And during this time, I have been making sure every day I do these five things. And it's my ritual. I make sure every day I journal, period. End of story. I journal every day. I engage in prayer and meditation time because that's important to me. I do something to help myself physically. I do something to move my business forward. And I do something to improve the quality of my living environment. Five things. So there is the journaling, there's prayer meditation, there's something for my physical health, my business health, and my environment. If I can do one thing in each of those categories every day, then I feel like I'm more grounded. And oh, by the way, I love some of these things. Some of you are saying, "Hey, I want to gift online," but I asked them to donate to a food bank. Some of you are saying, "Hey, check out the little free pantry across the country." There's so many great resources that you can tap into. So if you're looking for ways to create new rituals, look for need. Service is a really great place to create some need. And I love this. I've been practicing one compliment to someone every day, and I get more out of it than anyone. Exactly. It's the whole point of this, because that's not only a new ritual, it's practicing extreme active gratitude. Whatever it is. Like I said, I'm a big journaler because journaling for me has been very helpful. In fact, journaling has been on a huge uptick. I've been journaling actively on and off since I was about 11. So that's many decades of journaling. And I have found it has been a comforting resource. So if you're thinking, I would love to take that on as a new ritual or something that will work for me, we're going to try something else with our cell phones and oh, let's hope technology works. I'm confident it will. Same thing, grab your cell phone. We're going to use some different technology this time around. Open up your text function. So whatever you use to text people, open up your text function and then text the word positive to the number 33777. So you put the word positive in the message space and 33777 in the phone number space, just like on the sample phone. So text the word positive to 33777. And you'll get asked for your email address, but you'll also receive a free picture of what I call journal prompts. These are questions that you can ask yourself that you can start journaling on. Because a lot of times people say, I'd love to journal. It'd be a great new ritual for me. It's very healthy, it's very emotionally healing, but I don't know how. Get your free journal prompts, and this will get you started down the road. And it's a very easy thing to do. So all you have to do is text the word positive to 33777. Does it work in Canada? I apologize. I did not know I had Canadians. If you are from Canada, I will happily send you something. It's a wait, no, 33777 I do think works in Canada. Give it a shot. I'm pretty confident. If it does not, all you have to do is email me. My email address is all over your space here, pamelajett.com. Just go contact me through there and I'll get it to you. Doesn't seem to work in Canada. If you're Canadian, just send me an email and I'll send it to you. I apologize. I did not know we had a Canadian audience. I thought this was a strictly US audience because there is a different way to do this in Canada. I'm telling you, this is an interesting technology day. You're probably thinking, man, I'm bummed this technology did not work. Again, I apologize for that. But for some of you, it is working. And if not, just send me an email or contact me through my website and we'll get that to you because it's easy to get to you. A couple of other things. These are no does. But boy, it's smart to remind ourselves. And by the way, thank you for those of you who are saying got it because it's working for US phone numbers, but it's clearly not working for Canada. But I can get you everything to Canada people. You just have to contact me. Remember to listen and honor your body. When things are challenging or unprecedented, or we're feeling more pulls on us emotionally, we are probably going to need to nap probably going to need to remember to eat right. Some of you need to make sure that you get some sunshine, or you get some sort of physical exercise, or you listen to beautiful music and you take some time to relax. Please remember to listen and honor your body. Listen to and honor it. If your body says, I need to drink water, drink water. If your body says you need to take a nap, if at all possible. Listen to and honor your body. That is a really smart thing to help boost resilience. And it seems to be the antithesis of what a lot of us do. A lot of us try to push through instead of just taking a moment. I love that. And self-care is not selfish, because one of my favorite phrases, Nadia reminded me of this, is that an empty well gives no drink. Share that with you again. An empty well gives no drink. So if I'm not taking care of myself, how can I care for others? So self-care is not selfish, it is essential. Be of service. You're in a service career, and you know that that is good for the soul. Keep looking for those opportunities to serve in little ways. Today I opened up my front door, and one of my friends had dropped a funny little gift bag. I ought to have brought it to show you. It's a little plastic bag, and it just said, gift not included. And inside this little bag were 4 batteries, because it's the holiday season. People always run out of batteries. So it's kind of, instead of the batteries not included, she gave me the batteries and said gift not included. Just a small little sweet thought. What can we do to be of service? And I love it. Someone said, I lost internet service and don't know why I'm texting the word positive to 33777, but I'll do it. You're going to get a list of journal prompts if it's working for you. If you're in Canada, it will not work. So my apologies to that. Another form of great, relentlessly positive mindset building is to engage in relentlessly positive communication, because how you communicate is really going to make a difference. So here are a few quick tips. Instead of using the word but, try using the word and. So you can acknowledge to yourself, hey, this is hard, and it's going to teach me something. And my next best thought is to do X, Y, and Z. And you can follow that 3-step process, and you integrate the word and. Stop using the word but, which negates everything, and use the word and. You know, I'm really struggling, and it's going to get better. You can allow yourself to acknowledge the difficult and still have a positive response to it. I would also encourage you to stop asking what we call why and when questions. Why is this happening? When are they going to get things sorted out? Why are we doing this? When are things going to be easier? Why is this happening at this time? And when are we going to be able to be back to normal? Or why me? Why did this always happen to me? Stop asking those kinds of questions. They are really challenging. Instead, start asking what and how questions. What can I do to make it better? How can I make a difference? I love that. Amanda saying, I'm really struggling and I can reach out for help. That's a great example of using the and, like to acknowledge, yeah, I'm really struggling. Whether you are really struggling or someone else is really struggling, they're really struggling and they need some help. Those a really great example of using the word and. I would also encourage you to stop asking, like I said, why and when questions, and start asking what and how questions. And the good example that we had today of how questions is, how will this work for me? Now, we have been together for almost an hour today, and I know that there is so much that we could talk about to help us be more relentlessly positive. And I would encourage you to think about, what have I learned today and how will it work for me? And ask yourself, how am I going to apply this? How will this work? Am I going to start some new rituals? Am I going to start journaling? Am I going to use that 3-step process of identify and acknowledge, and then to reframe and think, what is my next step? How are you going to use some of the tools? How are you going to share them with others? Are you going to share them with others? Review that notion of start, stop, continue, which is how I had you think about taking some notes today so that you can have a nice reminder. Remember, relentlessly positive is the constant application of effective and productive optimism. So it's constant no matter what. And it's active. It's not something that we just, oh yeah, I'm in a good mood, but you actually are applying effective and productive optimism. And I've given you some tools to do that. So if you're thinking, hey, this is powerful, I want to stay connected with Pamela, you can find me in a lot of different places. You can find me on Facebook, and I run a relentlessly positive Facebook group. So if you go in the search function of Facebook, if you spend time there, just search for Relentlessly Positive and Pamela Jett, and my Facebook group will pop up, and you can ask to join that group. That is a zone where we share positive things, good news. I often share tools, tips, and techniques there. So that if you want to be connected with me on Facebook, join our Relentlessly Positive Facebook group. I can also be found on Instagram and on YouTube. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn, where I do tend to publish more scholarly types of things, or more research based things, or more articles that are business oriented. And typically, I tweet out when I post new things. And Deborah, I would agree. It is sad that some folks see optimism as, oh, you're just a Mary Sunshine, aren't you? Like they're jealous of your superpower. Yeah, it does make some people uncomfortable. I also know, though, that it doesn't also have to be, happy clappy. It can just be having that positive attitude. So I encourage you, if you've enjoyed what you're learning today, to stay connected with me. And if you're thinking, hey, I would love for this message to be available to a team that I know or a group that I know, if you're thinking we want some sort of virtual program, obviously feel free to contact my office. And for those of you who struggled getting your journal prompts, feel free to send me an email. You can just send me an email to just go to pamelajett.com, and there's a contact form, and I will send you those journal prompts. Just tell me journal prompts and I'll send them to you, and we'll make sure that that happens. Thank you for those of you who tried to take our poll. I'll send the results out. Sorry the tech didn't work for some of you, and I really appreciate all of your time, effort, and energy. We have a couple of minutes, just a couple, but if there is anyone who has a burning question that you would like to type into the chat pod, I would love to be able to take a moment and answer those. And Michelle, if you saw any questions come in the question section, if you want to share them with me now, that'd be great.
Yeah, I didn't see any questions that you didn't spot. There are a lot of thanks coming in, and I want to thank you too, Pamela. This has been really, really wonderful. I did see a couple of folks had their hand raised, and I tried to chat to you to see if you did that by accident or if you had a question, but
I'm going to pause for a second. Somebody asked, how can we help seniors from feeling more sad and overwhelmed? I'll answer that in a moment, but it's going to zip by if I didn't say it out loud. So go ahead and continue, Michelle.
No, that's a good one. And yes, this is being recorded, and the recording will be available for all you guys once we're done. But I think that's a great question, Pamela. What are your thoughts around helping seniors to stay?
I think the most important thing that you can do, especially because so many of them are struggling with loneliness and all of that, one of the things that you can do is you can use some of the tools that we talked about. In many ways, you can vocalize that three-step process. So instead of saying, don't be sad, Mary, or don't be, I know, Mary, it's hard to be positive, don't be sad. Instead of trying to tell them that their feelings aren't valid, say, yeah, this is a really, really unprecedented time. Or Mary, yeah, sadness is hard. I've learned that when I'm sad, I learn some things about myself, and then I can think differently sometimes. What are your thoughts? So you can walk them through that three-step process. But the worst thing to do is to try and ignore those sad feelings and be, oh, don't be like that. It'll be fine, because that typically does not work. But to acknowledge it and to say, yeah, I know you're sad. Or tell me more about that, and let them talk it through, allows them to acknowledge it. And then we want to be a good example. We want to be the kind of person who always looks at something and says, yeah, this is challenging, and we're going to do this, that, and the other. Or Mary, I know you're sad, and here are some of the activities we can do today that will hopefully help you feel better. That's the way to do it, by modeling that good behavior. Instagram handle is at Pamela Jett. Pamela Jett. So my Instagram handle is, yeah, you can find me by searching Instagram Pamela, and I might be Pamela M Jett on Instagram as well. Let me double check for you, because I don't want to give you false information. So for those of you who just asked I am Pamela M as in Mary Jett on Instagram, Pamela M Jett.
And Pamela, there was another good question that came in. Do you have any good suggestions on how we can respectfully address someone who's being relentlessly negative?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, you can ask a relentlessly negative person, hey, what do you think we ought to do to make it better? So when they're relentlessly negative and it's like chronic complaining, you say, well, what do you think we ought to do to make it better? Or how can we fix that? Or what would your recommendation be that we do? Or what would you like to do to help it? So you kind of put it back on them of, well, what would you suggest? And that doesn't, they'll sometimes, well, I don't know, you're the caregiver. I mean, I don't know, it's your responsibility. But essentially what you're training them to do is, hey, if you're going to bellyache and be relentlessly negative, I'm going to come back to you and ask you for a solution. that's one way of dealing with it. The other way of dealing with it is just simply saying, oh yeah, and I'm excited about, so you simply say, hey, thanks for telling me that, and I'm excited about, or I'm looking forward to. So you just counter their negativity with a relentlessly optimistic thing. Not that happy clappy rah rah, oh, don't be sad, it's gonna be fine, it'll be great, I'm having a great day. Not that way, but just simply saying, yeah, that is challenging, and what I'm looking forward to is, and you shift the focus of the conversation. Those are two tools you can use.
Thanks so much. Do you have a Facebook group?
Yes. Relentlessly positive, just like what we've been talking about. So all you have to do is put in the search function, Pamela Jett, relentlessly positive, and you'll be put in a queue. I have to approve you to come in, because that's the way we can keep crazy people out of our group. And I don't mean people who are negative. I just mean, you know how that is. Social media sometimes has all sorts of people who aren't really people. So we keep the bots out by having you wait in the waiting room until I approve you.
Right. I think that we got through all the questions, Pamela, and then we're right at our 11 o'clock hour Pacific time. So thank you so much. This has been all the thanks in the chat. I can tell you how much everyone appreciated everything that you shared today. Some really great techniques and fabulous, some awesome, stretched out. So thank you. So really, really appreciated you joining us today and sharing your positivity.
Well, I appreciate it. And just for those of you who are still struggling and finding me on various social media platforms, really the easiest thing to do is just search for me by my name, and I will show up in the search function. I live in Arizona, if that helps you. And sometimes you might need to pop my middle initial in there like you do on Instagram. But most of the time, just search for Pamela Jett. And if you want to throw relentlessly positive in there, that will help you as well. But those will give you some ideas if you're still struggling to find me on those social media platforms. Thank you so very much for being here today. And I don't know why I just did the weird, Zoom wave. Why do we wave on Zoom? We don't wave at the end of normal meetings, but I'm waving now. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Have a very good one. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Happy holidays.